Welcome everyone. My name is Terry Howerton. I am the CEO of TechNexus, and you're sitting in our space today. Our worldview for the last decade at TechNexus has really all been about startups and innovation conversations with big corporations. We've had almost 500 companies launch from this space, $500 million worth of capital invested into companies while they were operating here, and countless numbers of jobs that were created. I may, at first blush, be an unlikely immigration reform advocate. My children recently did a genealogy report at school, and they traced our ancestry back all the way to Jamestown, direct descendants. In fact, my 9th generation great-grandmother was the second wife of the man who married Pocahontas. So we've been here a while. But I am not 1 ounce more American than any of the first-generation immigrants in this room. And I'm not 1 ounce more American than any of those that aspire to become citizens of this country. I married a naturalized citizen. We together adopted an unaccompanied minor who was left behind by her mother, who was forced to live in the shadows and then forced out of this country. And the moral case for immigration reform could not be more clear. But it's really the economic case that I want to argue with you today, and the economic case that I believe the Business Roundtable is focused on. And I'm going to focus just on one statistic. You're going to hear many today. But the one that's most prominent in my mind is that 40% of all venture-backed companies in America, 40% of all venture-backed companies in America have immigrant founders at their core. 40% of every company that is the job creation engine in America depend on first-generation immigrant founders. And for the last decade or more, we have done everything we can to prevent that engine from cranking up, from preventing that engine from creating more jobs. Public policy matters. The courage of both parties to step up and take on this issue right now in a comprehensive and a common sense way is incredibly important. And it is absolutely, frankly, economic masochism that we don't take this issue on right now. Not next year, not sometime in the future, not whenever parties change control, but right now in a bipartisan way. And I'm really thrilled to introduce John Rowe, who can share more about our policy priorities in this organization and set the tone for the rest of the day.
Special thanks to the Republican office holders who are with us today. The fundamental purpose of the Illinois Business Immigration Coalition, and one of the purposes of Forward USA, is to encourage comprehensive immigration reform. Immigration reform that meets Father Holzschneider's test of having a heart, immigration reform that helps our economy, and immigration reform that is done in a way that makes us more secure as a nation, not less. We believe these things can be done. This is a season that is especially challenging for those of us who generally vote Republican, and mostly will do so again this year, because we believe in things like moderate taxes, individual responsibility, strong defense, and all that sort of thing. But we also believe in people. The whole point of this is about people. And in that context, it is an especial honor to welcome people on this stage. Senator Kirk was there with the other Republicans and a great many Democrats on the last immigration reform bill. And we are deeply grateful for his courage in being there. Congressman Dole, Congressman Diaz-Balart, they have also been there believing that this is good for America, and if done right, also good for the Republican Party. So I thank them all for being there. This is a society which is built almost entirely on immigrants. Even those we call Native Americans came here just 2,000 years earlier. Many of us come from families which were pretty undocumented when they arrived. I've been waiting for my ancestors to show me the permits from the Sac and the Fox to take over Southwest Wisconsin. I have not seen those permits. But we have an opportunity as a country to continue to make this melting pot work. It's a challenge. We have no alternative but to make it work. And deep down, we should wish for no alternative. So thank you all for being here, and a special thanks to our
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Mayra Lopez. I am the proud daughter of two amazing individuals who decided to immigrate to Chicago in 1997 in search of a better life for themselves and for their daughters. My parents are undocumented, and my sisters and I are beneficiaries of the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals that President Obama issued, which protect us from deportations and enable us to work legally. My young sister is a US citizen. Exactly 19 years ago, my parents and I arrived in Chicago on visitor's visas. I was 9 years old. My parents' decision to immigrate was fueled by love for themselves and for their family, to seek a place that would afford them better opportunities. And above all, they also had a profound and a sincere desire to be better people and to do better in life. My parents and I settled in the Back of the Yards community on Chicago's southwest side, a neighborhood stricken with poverty and violence. There they raised my sisters and I with an unshakable set of values, centered around the belief that we must always look after the most vulnerable people, that we should strive to be the best at what makes us passionate, that we must be humble enough to let our hard work speak for itself, and to value and work hard to obtain a college education. It was these sets of values that allowed me to earn a full scholarship to the University of Chicago that pushed my sister to attend the Illinois Institute of Technology, also on a scholarship. My parents, two undocumented individuals living in this country, are extraordinary people because they lead by example. My dad is the owner of a small fast food restaurant that employs US citizens. Business is thriving, but his status limits him from dreaming or having the financial security to grow and expand. My mom is an active member of her parish and community. She has trained hundreds of Latino parents on the importance of early childhood education, teaching other parents the importance of reading at home and how to advocate for their children. In her spare time, my mom does a lot. She volunteers with a group of mothers who have lost their children to gang violence. None of us have ever been in a gang, nor has she lost a child to that lifestyle. But she's quick to point out that the violence that surrounds our neighborhoods is not just a problem of those directly affected, it is everyone's problem. She believes it's her responsibility to care for the youth who do not have a loving parent at home or a parent who listens. And so my mom is out in the community talking and caring for other young people and consoling parents who have lost a child to gun violence. My parents are also homeowners in Back of the Yards. They intentionally decided to buy a home there because they believe we should not run away from the problems that surround our community, but they should stay and work to improve the community. My parents also live in fear that they could be deported and separated at any moment. They especially live in fear now because of Donald Trump. So this is why it is important for me to be here today, to applaud and to recognize Senator Kirk, Congressman Doe, Congressman Diaz-Balart, and State Senator Rodonio, and especially John Rowe, for stepping up for my parents and for DACA recipients like my sister and I, who will lose our work permits should Donald Trump become president. To ensure that Trump will not become president, I am organizing in my community to encourage Latinos who are citizens to register and to vote in November. Thank you all for being courageous enough to speak up and loudly about the need for immigration reform, and for recognizing that my family and I deserve to live without fear, with dignity, and with the capacity to be fully participant members of this great country. Thank you.
Good morning. you, Myra. My name is Bill Kunkler. I am a proud co-chair of the Illinois Business Immigration Coalition group, and I'm here today in that capacity. My day job is Executive Vice President of CC Industries, which operates a portfolio of industrial companies located here in Illinois and across the country and in many foreign countries. Our company was founded on the backs of immigrants. My first job experience here in Illinois in the early 80s was working not far from here in a large mining operation in Romeoville, Illinois. My job was assistant quarry superintendent. I was 26 years old. My responsibilities included supervising the completion of the daily production and maintaining large pieces of equipment. For someone who had grown up playing with construction equipment, this was a dream job. The vast majority of our crew of 25 to 30 employees were from Mexico. I was a success because of them. Working with the Illinois Business Immigration Coalition is my way of paying back what I learned and shared with those individuals. Immigrants strengthen the Illinois economy and the economies of all the states in this great country. I see this every day in both high and low skilled jobs within my family's companies. Immigrants or their children founded, as we heard earlier, 40% of our Fortune 500 companies. Immigrants are twice as likely as the native born to start a business. Immigrants are job creators. As a Republican, I do not believe immigrants are criminals. On the contrary, they are the backbone of this great country. I supported Jeb Bush earlier this year and share his belief that immigrants who are undocumented come to the United States out of an act of love. And I would add, they come here to work hard. In 2012, Massachusetts Governor Mitt Romney, who I supported, only received 27% of the Latino vote nationwide. This year, the support will probably be much lower, perhaps as much as 50% less, considering the ugly and hateful rhetoric of Donald Trump. The number of Latinos registered to vote has increased substantially, and the turnout of this group is expected to be much higher to fight back against Trump. I support that fight and hope Trump and his supporters are humiliated at the polls. For the first time in my adult life, I will not vote for the Republican nominee for president, but I will continue to support courageous Republican leaders in the U.S. House and Senate, like Senator Mark Kirk, Bob Dole, Congressman Ballard from Florida, and also another individual, Adam Kinzinger, who spoke out last week very strongly against Donald Trump. They do not support his brand of politics, and they have withheld their endorsements of him. In fact, they have essentially opposed him. They're working to build a party of inclusion, and I will help them with that task. I admire their courage and fortitude. My hunch is the next president will be Hillary Clinton, and that she will have immigration reform on the agenda in her first 100 days. Republicans will be licking their wounds after the effects of Trump leading the ticket and should be willing to deal with her on sensible reform. I am proud of our elected leaders from both parties this year who passed legislation signed by Governor Rauner to provide health coverage for 41,000 undocumented children here in Illinois. Thank you, Senator Radonio, for your leadership. This bipartisan victory on immigration should serve as a model for the nation. Let's celebrate that bipartisanship and encourage more of it in Washington. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Bill. We're going to hear from our elected officials next, and to introduce U.S. Senator Kirk, I have Carolina Parra. Oh, there you are.
Good morning, everyone. It's an honor to be here today. My name is Carolina Parra. I'm a student at the University of Illinois, and I'm a proud DACA recipient. Although my father is a permanent resident and my brothers are U.S. citizens, my mom and I are not. For me, passing common sense immigration reform would mean I wouldn't have to live in fear of separation from my family. But it would also mean that I would get to live out my lifelong dream of becoming a teacher. Studying history has been a dream of mine since I came to the United States when I was 4 years old. I hope that I can one day teach my students to fall in love with learning, and one day, hopefully too, they can become civically engaged. Senator Kirk has been a champion for immigration reform, and I'm pleased to introduce him today. He was elected to the House of Representatives in the year 2000. He has served 5 terms before his election in the U.S. Senate. He currently serves on 4 Senate committees, and I appreciate you, Senator Kirk, for being here today, as well as your fellow companions here. And it is my great honor to introduce you, and thank you for taking the right step in fixing our broken immigration system.
I would like to say that I'm here now as a supporter of comprehensive immigration reform to make sure that we do what's right for this state. I would say that we got to have bipartisan leaders in Washington that put patriotism over party, and that's why I've broken from my party with 14 other senators that voted for comprehensive immigration reform, mainly so that we bring the 525,000 undocumented in from the shadows to put down deep roots. I'm here very happy to be here with Congressman Dole. He and I had the honor of representing Waukegan, Illinois. If you look at Waukegan, a deindustrialized city, if you took the Hispanic, the recently arrived Hispanic community, you would rip the economic guts out of that city. I think we need to make sure that Waukegan is even better off. Thank you. But I would take a moment to, if I got the mic situation set up here, I would take a moment to tell you the story of a program that I started as a congressman. It's called the Abuelita program. That I would say the reality of immigration in this country is that people do not emotionally emigrate from Mexico to the United States. They emotionally immigrate from Tonatico, Estado de Mexico, to Waukegan, Illinois. I found that throughout Illinois there are these informal links. And my job as a senator is to find all those links. I'm sure Aurora, Illinois has a special link to a couple of Mexican towns. When I visited Tonatico, Estado de Mexico, I asked the alcalde, the mayor there, to do some town hall meetings, because I used to be called the king of town halls as a congressman. And when I met in the iglesia, in the church, the room was full of older women. I thought, oh gosh, it seems like this is a town of abuelita, a town of grandmothers. And I asked them, who here has familia in Illinois? The whole room raised their hands. I said, ¿de dónde? It was like a map of Illinois right in that Mexican town. I asked, ¿de dónde? They said, Lake Forest, Waukegan, Aurora. And so I just heard my state hearing out there. And I said, si puedes entrar a los Estados Unidos, if you can enter the United States legally, can I bring you together under this mayor and make sure we all apply for a visa together? And if somebody violates their visa, I will shut down the program, and I will use the group dynamics of this group, of this town, to make sure everybody enters and leaves. And as I build up trust with the U.S. Ambassador, I will do this. I have now done this 3,000 times. 3,000 times. If you go to one of my welcoming ceremonies, we do this in a very Latino way, very emotional. Bring in each family together. Sometimes you will hear separados, 25 years, 18, van cinco, 25 years or something like that. I said, the other day, I felt very lucky when we appointed Roberta Jacobson to be our ambassador from President Obama to Mexico. When she came to see me, we met as friends because I worked with her in the State Department. I said that The main thing I want to hear from you, Roberta, is you're going to be pro-Abuelita program. If Senado Kirk comes forward with a bunch of abuelitas, a bunch of grandmothers, I want you to work with me because we are all within the law and we will make this happen. So the unique connection between Mexico and Illinois is understood and honored.
Good morning. My name is Edith Robles. I came to the United States in 1993 as a newlywed. 2 years later, my son Luis was born, and I was terrified to think, how will I help him to learn when he will reach school age? How will I speak with his teachers if I did not know English? So I learned English. Like millions of undocumented immigrants, I actively engage in my community. I work, I pay taxes, and I'm a homeowner. My husband and I teach our U.S. citizen children, Luis and Daniela, to value hard work and a college education. My son Luis is a senior at Marquette University studying marketing and business. Daniela is a top student and she plays violin in a mariachi band, where she learns and appreciates the music of her heritage. I am happy to introduce our next speaker, Congressman Bob Dole, who understands the contributions of immigrants to our great nation. Congressman Dole supported not only a path to citizenship, but also DACA and DAPA, and has been a leader in the Republican Party to compassionate reform. Please help me to welcome Congressman Bob Dole.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you all for being here today, and it's an honor for me to be here. And as we talk about immigration, this is about people. Inherently, this is a people issue. Yes, it's about our economy, and you've heard that the very fabric of our nation was built by immigrants. Thanks, Rebecca. So we are a nation of immigrants, a proud nation of immigrants. But as we look at this very human story, right, this is about people, it's about families. And so, although this is a very personal thing for not just the 10th District, not just the state of Illinois, but our entire country, I want to share just one story. You heard about Myra, right? And she is an incredible story, an underachiever, clearly, going to the University of Chicago. But I want to talk to you about Erica Martinez. Erica Martinez, 12 years ago, her family came to our country. She was an infant. Well, maybe a little bit older than an infant, but a young child. Her parents brought her here to America because they had a dream about a better life for their children. They worked hard, they put a good work ethic in. She was a great student at school. She now has a full ride scholarship to the University of Illinois because she wanted to pursue a degree in political science. She is a dreamer. She is, I would argue, the very fabric of our country. She is going to be one that will contribute immeasurably, not only to our economy, but will contribute to our community as well. Last year I had the privilege of bringing Erica to the State of the Union address. And here's the bottom line. Every day that Congress fails to act on immigration reform, families like Erica's will live in the shadows, fearing that they may be torn apart every day that they get up and go to work. That's not what we're about. We need to talk about making sure that the fabric of our country is stronger each and every day, not weaker. And so I do believe that the way forward is with bipartisan support. What you see here today is you see members in the Republican side of the aisle that are coming together, speaking out on areas about immigration reform that need to happen. So Senator Kirk and Mayra Diaz-Balart and Senator Radonio are just a few. This is not an exhaustive list. And honestly, I can tell you that the work that's being done in the United States Congress is reaching out both sides of the aisle to figure out the path forward, because we have a broken immigration system. There's no way in the world that we are going to send 11 million people out of the United States. Many of them, most of them, I would argue, are more American than their next door neighbors. because many of them are our next door neighbors. And so it's one of the reasons why the first bill that I introduced in the United States Congress this term was the Startup Act. We know, as we've seen here from hearing from Terry and others, we're educating the best and the brightest from all over the world in our country. As soon as they graduate with an advanced degree, what do? Father will tell you, we kick them out to go compete against us. And the last thing in the world that we should be doing. We should encourage them to stay here, to help create the next new patent here, to help innovate here, because empirically we know that creates more American jobs. Father Holzsnyder talked before about workers in Paw Paw, Michigan. I was just at Brookside Farms in Paw Paw, Michigan last week. So funny that you mentioned Paw Paw, Michigan. Talking to folks there that are working hard trying to achieve the American dream. This is an American issue. And frankly, when we talk about human rights and we talk about trying to advance the ball economically for our country and how we grow, our immigrants play a very key and vital role in that process. When I think of the United States Congress and I look at those that are actually moving things forward, there has been almost no greater advocate. Maybe Luis Gutierrez, who has certainly been helpful, and we have done events back up in the district highlighting the need for immigration reform and how to succeed as an immigrant. But Mario Diaz-Balart, I will tell you, has been a driving force for common sense immigration reform, trying to figure out the needs that we have to move forward to be able to fix our broken immigration system. He is a leader and one of the senior members of our Appropriations Committee, but he really has been an advocate of trying to move forward, trying to make sure that we're building that support from both sides of the aisle and recognizing the potential landmines that may be out there. Because our ultimate goal is how do we strengthen our country and how do we get things passed. He's been an advocate for human rights and democracy around the globe. He came up to Illinois today for this event. We asked him to come up because as we look at immigration reform, there isn't anyone on our side of the aisle that's doing more day in and day out for immigration reform than Mario Diaz-Balart. It's an honor to call him my friend, and it's an honor to introduce him to all of you.
Thank you. Buenos días. Gracias por recibirme con la temperatura de Miami, de donde soy yo. Let me first, actually, what we've heard now, and by the way, with absolute accuracy, is that this is an economic issue. We've heard with absolute accuracy that it's a human issue. But there's more to that. So let me take it in another direction. If you don't care about the economy, if you're happy, you're doing fine, you don't care about anybody else, frankly, if you're not too concerned about how other people are doing, but you care about national security, you care about making sure that the United States can decide who comes in and who leaves in an orderly fashion, if your only concern were to be national security, then you have to be supporting urgently fixing a system that puts our national security at risk, which is the current immigration system. If you don't care about that either, but you care about the Constitution and you care about the rule of law, which all of us do, if that's all you were to care about, and then you have to be outraged by the current situation, that is an absolute violation of the rule of law, where we don't control the system, where folks who are trying to come to the United States can't do it legally in any real fashion, where you have millions of people who are here in the shadows. So regardless of what you're concerned about, if it's only the rule of law and the Constitution, the economy, national security, or yes, human beings, there should be the same urgency within all of those folks as we see with these two members of Congress. Now, I will tell you, you've also heard now, and it's true, Well, let me restate that. When we finally get this done, it's going to have to be done in a bipartisan way. Why? First place, it's a math issue. Second place, something of this magnitude has to be done that way. And third, even if it wasn't a math issue, if we could do it in a nonpartisan way, which is not possible, it's also the right thing to do. Now, I will tell you I'm optimistic. You know, because of the efforts of these two individuals, and I've had the privilege of working with them now for a while, and Bob, you were very, very generous with your introduction. And if it is true that I've been kind of like the face, the Republican face on immigration reform for a while, nothing, and we came so close last Congress, but all of that is because of the work that these gentlemen have been doing for years. So I'm optimistic. I am. I'm optimistic that eventually the noise has to settle. The window of opportunity will open. It doesn't have to open much. And it requires the extremes to kind of just shut the hell up. And let those individuals, like Bob Dole, who was willing to do the work regardless of how controversial or how difficult it may be, or Senator Kirk, who's willing to take the bullets and the accusations, no matter how difficult it may be, to get what the country needs done. I'm convinced that because of their efforts, because of your faith, because of your efforts and the private sector, and that's why I'm so grateful that Mr. Rowe has allowed us and invited us here today, and Senator, again, for your efforts on the state level. I'm convinced that we will get it done. I'm convinced that that noise, which is a lot of noise, is a small part of our country. And I'm convinced that because the American people recognize leadership and courage, and I know that because of the three public servants that are here with us today, I'm convinced we're going to get it done. So we're going to need your help. We're going to need your support. We're going to need you to stand. And yes, in a democracy, you never get 100%. But you see, like all of us, I too believe in the rule of law. I too believe that we have to strengthen our economy. I too believe in the Constitution. I too believe that human beings who work hard, who do everything that they're asked to do, who have been here, worked hard here, who have Americans in their family, deserve a way where they can earn a process, where they can earn a way to get right with the law, again, to follow the rule of law. So thank you for the invitation, and I look forward to this conversation with each and every one of you today. Thank you. It's a privilege to be here.
Buenos dias.
Buenos dias.
I'm Zeke Flores. I'm the CEO of Flying Concessions, which involves a $10 million airport concession portfolio, and I employ about 40 people here in Illinois. I'm honored to introduce Senate Leader Rodonio, Republican Leader Rodonio. While federal immigration reform stalled, Senator Rodonio worked productively with Democratic leaders, President Cullerton, as well as Speaker Madigan, to support state immigration legislation, such as the DREAM Act, driver's license, and health care for all undocumented children. Illinois' business and immigrant community has benefited from the sensible leadership of Senator Rodonio. Please help me in welcoming her.
Thank you very much. It's really an honor to be here with these fine federal representatives. As you know, I'm the only state person here, but that's because I think in large part immigration is a federal issue. And I am delighted that we have some bipartisan interest and support in the issue. I view my role as sort of trying to gin up the organic support for these gentlemen and ladies who on the federal level are attempting to solve the problem once and for all. Many of the efforts that we undertake in the state are largely, although not entirely, symbolic. But what it does do is give me an opportunity to talk with my constituents and to have the discussion. And that's what I think we need to focus on, is educating people. I think that one of the worst things that we can do, and we see that going on right now, and we see it in both parties, is making immigration a political issue. And what we do is we feed people's lack of information, the misinformation that they have. I think if people are educated, they understand what's been discussed here earlier, that immigration makes sense from an economic perspective, from a business perspective. You know, we need to have a growing population in order to have a growing economy. And we're missing out in a large way on the economic benefits. But again, just from a personal perspective for doing the right thing, I think when we continue to make it a political issue, we do not allow some individuals to have the experience to get to know immigrants and people of other cultures and enrich their own lives, incidentally, in doing so. But so when we have these issues at the state level, I view my role as to tamp down rhetoric, as a leader to allow members who feel comfortable taking votes on issues that may be portrayed as a lightning rod. If I vote that way, there's a bit of cover there. And it's worked. I mean, we've been able to get some bipartisan support. But again, in my role, I like to think of it as one of education. And so the more educated and accepting people become through state level initiatives, the easier it will be on the federal level to pass the final solution that we so desperately need in this country. I look forward to working with these gentlemen and to continuing whatever efforts I can partake in with Illinois on the state level. Thank you very much for including me today.
I think we've heard today courage. Courage from a party that frankly has been short on courage to tackle this issue. But courage from leaders who are willing to stand up regardless of politics and say that this is an American priority, it's a moral priority, and it is clearly an economic priority. You heard me say earlier about the number of startups and job creators that depend on the immigrant entrepreneur. Perhaps the easiest thing for me and my friends in the business community and my friends in Silicon Valley and the tech community to do, maybe the easiest thing for us to do, is to go to Washington, D.C. and to say, you know, we meet very, very few people on either side of the aisle who thinks it's a bad idea to staple a green card to a diploma. That's consensus almost across the board. That's the easy thing to do. The hard thing to do is the comprehensive immigration reform. And the reason that we don't come out and say, just do that thing we need, just give us access to that high-skilled talent, just give us a solution that allows us to keep the researchers in our universities that are doing the basic research that's driving innovation in the world. Give us an excuse to just keep them here. The reason we don't just accept that is because it's not the right thing to do just that. You heard me speak earlier of adopting an unaccompanied minor whose mother was forced out of this country and they were split apart. We went in under today's law, clear law, black and white. We went in to pursue that path to citizenship for that child, to become a guardian for that child. We ended up caught in a Byzantine situation that was almost impossible for me to even follow. We had to go through court case after court case, ultimately to the Illinois Appellate Court, spending tens of thousands of dollars just to get local Cook County judges to follow the law, to know what the law even was to follow the law. And ultimately, we set precedent in the state of Illinois, and dozens of kids across the state were immediately affected and helped by that. We shouldn't make immigrant families have to navigate that kind of crazy situation. I'll leave you with this final thought. We are much, much closer than maybe some of the pessimists would say. I've seen in Washington time and time again in just the last couple of years how close this vote is to passing. In fact, I think the votes are already there on both sides of the aisle to pass comprehensive immigration reform. So my call to action for you is to say, one, keep the charge. We're not that far away. We can make this happen. We can make this happen for kids, we can make this happen for the economy. And it really is going to take leadership from both sides of the aisle and the courage that you've seen here today to push that over the final lap. Thank you very much.